The newest member of the bantamweight roster, John Castaneda, who's going to be taking on Nathaniel Wood at UFC Fight Night on July 25th. John, how's it going, man? I imagine pretty damn good.
I'm doing pretty well, man. Thanks a lot for having me on the show. Absolutely.
Yes, and a long time coming. I mean, we've been doing these interviews for a while. It's so great to see you finally get this opportunity. We're recording this on July 12th. When did you put pen to paper and sign this fight? Because it seemed like it happened pretty quickly.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it was pen to paper, I want to say no more than a week ago. You know what I mean? It was probably last Monday that I did that. It was probably a couple days prior to that I caught wind of this. You know, I caught wind of the opportunity. It all happened so fast, but I'm ready for sure.
Were you surprised at all, or was this something you were expecting?
I was a bit surprised that I got the fight. You know what I mean? But I wasn't surprised at the opportunity, just because I've had a couple opportunities in the past year. You know, I haven't fought for a little bit over a year. But in that year, I've had a couple opportunities. I was a free agent. We asked for a release from our Combate Americas contract after my last win, after my last fight. And so I was a free agent. I got a couple opportunities, but I'm just going to keep it really, really honest with you. I had to say no to all of them. And that was due to my own personal issues, not training related. You know what I mean? I was constantly training, you know, every single day, just like I always do this past year and a half. It was weight related. You know what I mean? Can you take a fight on 10 days notice? Can you take a fight on 2 weeks notice? You know, I've never been that kind of guy. You know, I'd like to say I'm a bigger 35er. You know what I mean? I walk pretty heavy as well. So that's kind of the reason behind me saying no to previous opportunities. Some of those even coming from the UFC as well. So.
Interesting. Okay, that makes sense. Was there ever a point you thought it might not happen? You talked about how you were given opportunities. It wasn't the right timing. I mean, you never know. The UFC can take that a different way. Were you worried at all?
Absolutely. No, they can take it a totally different way as well. But no, I absolutely was worried. But I know with good management, with Jason House, you know what I mean? He's so in the mix, and he's got so much connections, and he's the man right now. You know what I mean? He's working. He works harder than anybody I've ever met. And so I knew that he would get me in there eventually.
Who's the first person you told the news to?
My wife was right there. You know,
me and
my wife were right there when Jason gave me that FaceTime call. After that, I talked to my coaches and my training partners and the possible corners that would go with me. And then that's it. Yeah.
Where did you train? Like, what type of camp have you had leading into this? Because I know in the past when we've spoken, I know obviously home base is back in Minnesota, if I'm not mistaken, but I know you also used to cross train a bit in Arizona. So where are you at right now?
Obviously with the whole quarantine and COVID stuff, I've been kind of stuck in Minnesota. I wouldn't say stuck. I love Minnesota and I choose to train here. But the first month of quarantine, all gyms were closed, right? Obviously with all the restrictions and stuff with COVID. So with our home gym being closed at the Minnesota Martial Arts Academy, I bought a bunch of zebra mats and built my own gym here at home, thanks to Ryan Fisher. But I was able to buy some mats, come here at home, have a couple training partners that I trusted to stay healthy with me, you know what I mean, during that first month. After that first month, we talked to our coaches and we worked out a plan where we're able to train inside of the facility in small groups. And so obviously what I did is I chose the best people that are training partners for me, you know, my size, high caliber training partners, good jiu-jitsu guys, good striking guys, you know, the whole works. And it actually worked out a little bit better just because, the smaller group, you get a little bit more focus from your coaches, you know what I mean, and stuff like that. So to be honest, COVID is, for me, it made camp a lot better. Like I was telling you earlier, I've gotten a couple opportunities from the UFC or just to put my name in the hat for a couple fights, and I've had to say no. Well, a little bit over 8 weeks ago, I caught wind of the Abu Dhabi fights, the Fight Island fights, and I told myself mentally, and I was like, there's a lot of fights on those cards. There's probably going to be a lot of bantamweight fights, but with COVID mixed with it being in a different country, there's got to be a chance that something falls through. And so I basically made up a date, and I told myself, like, hey, you're going to be fighting on one of these cards. Like, you already signed the contract. Like, let's go. All right. So then I got in this mode, right, where I'm in training camp. I'm dieting. I'm doing all the right things, all the necessary things that I need to do. sure enough, a couple weeks ago, in the UFC Texas, there was an opportunity to put my name in the hat for Sean Woodson. His opponent had pulled out. My manager said, "Hey, can I put your name in the hat?" And I said, "Absolutely." And it felt so good to say yes for once, because normally I'm like, I'm too heavy. You know what I mean? I'm not ready for the weight cut. It's especially on 10 days notice, but this time I was ready. And so I said yes, put my name in the hat. Obviously they went with the local guy for that fight. But now I knew it's like, this is it. That's all it takes. It's just an opportunity met with, you being ready in all aspects. And so that's exactly what happened here. They told me, hey, my manager told me we're putting my name in the hat, and I got the fight, and we're ready.
Now, that Woodson fight would have been at featherweight, right? Because there's no way Sean Woodson can make 135. He's a pretty big guy. This fight is at 35, correct? Or is that 45?
35, yeah. 35.
Okay, gotcha. So just kind of on that note, because you kind of alluded to it there. You don't have to go into too much detail, but like, why is it so tough for you? Like, I guess you have to know there's a fight available for you to make that weight, to be disciplined. Because you don't strike me as a guy who's eaten a lot of bad food outside of camp. Like, what is it? Is it just because you have to be very calculated about getting down to the weight?
That's exactly what it is. I have to be super calculated. You're right. I don't. I'm not this guy who's out eating a bunch of
fast food,
eating out a bunch of fast food and stuff like that. You know what I mean? But I think just naturally, I could still be even pretty lean, but I get up to, 175, 180. And walking around, normally I'm on average 170, you know what I mean? So when you're talking about a 10-day notice to cut down to 36, it's almost impossible, you know what I mean? It's not impossible, it's very doable, but you're going to sacrifice a performance at that point, you know what I mean? Probably a very poor performance. I mean, I'm not saying that Masvidal this past weekend, that was like an example of it, but that it had some toll on him cutting 20 pounds in 6 days. You know what I'm saying?
Yes. No, I definitely agree with that, as you got the water there as well. Were you familiar with Nathaniel Wood before you took this fight? Had you watched his fights? Like, did you know of him before accepting the fight?
I'm not going to lie. No. I know as soon as I started looking up his fights, I thought, why don't I know this guy? You know what I mean? He's 3-1 in the UFC. He's a tough dude. But no, I hadn't heard of him, and I should have. You know what I mean? I guess I don't really keep up with guys in my division that often, except for obviously the top 15. You know what I mean? The high profile fights. But this guy is there, man. I mean, he is a top contender. He's a prospect. He's 3-1 in the UFC. He's only lost to Dodson. He's good.
No, he certainly is. You talked a bit about training camp there. Who did you get to work with specifically as far as training partners for this fight?
We have this really good, jiu-jitsu guy. He's kind of, you guys probably don't know him. His name is Rashal Malik. He's a brown belt. He just transferred to our school from Texas here about a year and a half ago. And I kid you not, man. So I like to think that I'm a very, very, high level grappler / wrestler. But this guy, he's probably 10 pounds lighter than me. And he just washes the mats with me. It's embarrassing. And those are the kind of people that you need, right? Rashal Malik. I got my good training partners that are all my size. Kazim Khan, Noah Smith. A lot of guys, not too many guys that you guys might know, but
we will know soon.
You will know. And here's the thing about it too, is that this is what's crazy. And I was just talking to my coach about this the other day, is that there's so many guys out there that the world doesn't know that are probably way better than guys that you do know. You know what I mean? I'm saying, this guy, Rashal Malik, who I've been training with all quarantine long, he's a strong jiu-jitsu guy, strong wrestler. He absolutely, demolishes me like nobody else. And nobody knows him. He's 3-1 in MMA, but he stopped competing in MMA because he just doesn't have the passion for it. You know what I mean? But there's so many of those guys in our gym, so many high-level strikers, so many high-level grapplers that people don't know about because they just choose not to fight. You know what I mean? But...
And on that note, I got to ask, have you talked to your buddy, Dan Moret? I know you probably didn't get to train with him, but I'm sure he was thrilled to hear the news that you'd finally made it.
Absolutely. Dan's super pumped about it. He's going to be one of my corners. He's nice. Obviously still located in Phoenix, training out at the Fight Ready and the MMA lab and stuff like that. But he's coming. We're flying out to Vegas this Thursday. Me, my coach, Greg Nelson, who has been a blessing to have in my corner, obviously. Sean McPadden, another one of my good teammates. We're flying out of Minneapolis. Dan will be flying out of Phoenix.
Excellent. Very cool. I got to ask about the cut. I saw you drinking the water there. How is the weight right now? And especially, I'm sure you got to consider the long travel as well to get out there.
Yeah, absolutely. The weight's been great. Right now, I'm just right on par. So I always, my very best weight cut I ever had, I took a picture of all my weigh-ins for that month. So every day I wake up and I write my weight on my little calendar, and then it progresses through my weight, my training camp, right? The last month of my training camp. I have that as reference for all future weight cuts. And right now I'm right on par with that one that I had the best weight cut ever. So
fantastic. How do you see the fight playing out in the 25th? You feel like you're going to get your hand raised, otherwise why sign the bout agreement? But how do you see it unfolding? Yeah,
so it's going to be a tough fight, obviously, but honestly, I think Nathaniel Wood is very beatable. I think that I'm going to have size on him. He's not used to fighting. Besides Dodson, his first 3 wins, he's not used to fighting, I feel like, super athletic guys. And I'm very athletic. I'm just as athletic as him. I'm just as fast as him, and I'm going to be bigger. I know that. He has 3 submission wins. I personally think that I have the advantage when it comes to wrestling and submissions. You know what I mean? I feel like a lot of these guys that he submitted folded very easily. Not a lot of transitions, not a lot of scrambles. And if you've ever watched one of my fights, I'm moving always. You know what I mean? I'm not going to fold like these guys. So, like I said, it's just a blessing that I'm able to take this fight, and also that I'm confident in my training camp. And I think honestly that's the biggest thing when it comes to fights is confidence comes from your preparation, and I'm well prepared for sure. These last 8 weeks have been brutal for me. I've been training like I had a fight on Fight Island, and sure enough, I got one. So,
did you watch, at the time of recording this, it's Monday, did you watch the UFC 251 card on the weekend?
I did. It was super exciting to watch, but also just like seeing all the stuff that led up to it. Like, I'm super pumped about it. You know what I mean? Fight Island in general. Rose Namajunas has actually got to train here. She's from here. She's from Minnesota. She started off training with our head coach, Greg Nelson. So at the beginning of the year, she was actually here for a couple months. So I got to do some training with her, training with her and everybody who came with her. So that was fun to watch, and obviously, like, always rooting for her. But absolutely, it was an exciting card, and I'm just excited to be a part of it.
Okay, reason I ask, I got 2 questions for you. I actually got 3, and then we'll wrap things up here. But first one, how did you score Volkanovski-Holloway? Because everyone feels like there was a robbery or it was the wrong call. Do you agree with that, or do you think that Volkanovski won? What was your scorecard watching that?
In the most non-biased opinion, because I've always been a big fan of Max Holloway. Growing up, that was like my dude. You know what I mean? But as non-biased as I can be, I had Max winning the first 3 rounds and Volkanovski winning the last 2. That was me. The first 2 were pretty decisive in my eyes. The third one was like obviously a lot more competitive, but I still, like I said, being non-biased, gave it to Max, and then the last 2 I gave to Volkanovski.
Okay, fair enough. And then obviously the bantamweight title fight. I'm sure you watched that. What did you think of Jan's performance? And stopped a little bit too late, I'm sure, but Aldo looked pretty good in the early going. I thought that was a really good fight.
Stopped a little too early as well, but yeah, I mean, besides that takedown at the very end of I think it was the first round. I think Aldo was winning that whole entire first 2 rounds. I know he got taken down at the very end there at one of those rounds. But yeah, he looked really good at 35 for the first couple rounds. And then eventually I think it was the gas tank that got him. Yeah, the cut. I mean, he looks like he's 0.5% body fat. You know what I mean? And he's a big guy for 35. So, Peter Yan played it perfectly. He played to his strengths. He's got a tank for days. You know what I mean? So he was able to finish it late in the round. But for sure, other than the late stoppage, I think Peter Yan put on a great performance, and he earned it for sure.
Last question. I know you're not a big hockey fan, but I do want to make you aware that the Minnesota Wild are playing my Vancouver Canucks in the play-in round. I'm not sure if you're aware of this, but we managed to get through this interview without arguing, so that was pretty good.
No, I did. I actually was aware of that. It's crazy to me that we're going to just start right there, you know what I mean, with hockey and stuff like that. But no, I mean, excited nonetheless. I'm just excited to have sports back, you know what I mean?
Me too.
I'm so sick of just watching replays. I'll scroll on SportsCenter on my phone or just watch SportsCenter on the TV sometimes, and it's like games from a couple of years ago, and I'm like, oh, I'm so excited for some new stuff, some live stuff. So, best of luck. You're right. I'm not a big fan of hockey, but I'm always rooting for the home team. You know that. Yeah,
no, for sure. And we're certainly going to be a lot of people are going to be rooting for you this on July 25th. I should say, John. Really looking forward to the fight. It is a UFC Fight Night. Anyone you want to thank? Any sponsors? Any social media you want to plug? The floor is yours.
Just want to thank all my training partners at the Minnesota Martial Arts Academy, all my coaches, Coach Greg Nelson, Andy Grahn, Nat McIntyre, high level team there when it comes to coaching. You know, a lot of world champions, a lot of years of experience, and obviously my manager Jason House for getting me this opportunity. You know, this is only the beginning. You know, getting into the UFC is huge, but making a name for yourself is even bigger. You know what I mean? And having success in this big organization is even bigger for me. So we got work to do.